Now, getting back here to the edition that we're going to work with, which is Windows Server 2012 Standard Edition, I have two choices here. I have the Server Core installation or the Server with a GUI installation. And I will point out to you that the default, okay, where it's highlighting by default, is the Server Core installation. And the reason why is because the idea with Windows Server 2012 is that you will never actually be at the machine. Okay, you should be remotely managing the server 90+% of the time. And for both resource and security reasons, you want to go ahead and have Server Core so that you can do the remote functionality with pretty much everything, because you're going to have the GUI on your Windows 8 client, or I suppose it could be another remote Windows Server 2012 computer. But this particular box will be secure and not tying up extra resources. All that said, we here, for the sake of this course, we're going to go ahead and install with the GUI. Okay, we want to have the full graphical user interface so that we can see how to manage everything from right here on the server. And the reason is not to go against what you would do in production. So I'm not trying to oppose what we should be doing. It's that we are in a learning environment here. We're not in a production environment. Now, the other thing I will tell you, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Because I want to tell you, while we're waiting on this to flip to the next screen here, is that the ability to switch back and forth between the GUI and the core installation, or I should really say Server Core installation, is now available. And I'm going to show you that later on once we have the operating system installed. Let me go ahead and accept the license terms. And of course, make sure you read the whole end user license agreement, right? And I'm just joking that I'm scrolling down through all this. It's not a joke that you should read it. You should read it at some point, but we're not going to read it here. I'll go ahead and click Next, that we agree to it. And then we have a choice between upgrading, which of course we can't do because this is just a blank machine that has nothing on it, or go ahead and select Custom to go ahead and install a new copy of Windows Server 2012. Now you'll see that I have set up a 200 gigabyte hard drive. Okay, that's the virtual hard drive that I've set up as part of this virtual machine. And we want to go ahead and install on that 200 gig drive. I could just go ahead and click Next, or I could click Drive Options if I wanted to go ahead and create separate partitions. So let's say if I wanted to divide this into two separate 100 gig partitions, I could go ahead and click on New, and I could create a 100 gig partition or create both of them at this point, whatever we wanted to do. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a single 200 gig hard drive. So I can just click Next. And then you'll see the installation process begins. Again, this looks very similar to previous versions of Windows Server. It's going to go through the various steps here where it's going to copy Windows files. As you can see, it's already complete. It's going to get those files ready for installation. It will install certain features and updates and then finish up. And more specifically, as part of this process, it's going to reboot a couple of times. So depending on the machine that you're using, whether it's a physical machine or whether it's a virtual machine, and depending on the actual hardware that you have in place, this can take anywhere from, I will tell you that I've seen it as short as 3 minutes, and I don't know what the long side is. Okay, I suppose it could take 20 or 30 minutes if you have a really slow computer. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let this process finish, and I will tell you that if my process finishes faster than yours, which it probably will, because through the magic of video recording, I can speed this up, you can go ahead and pause the lesson and then go ahead and resume when you've caught up to where we're at. So let's go ahead and let this finish, and we'll continue when we get to the next screen where it's prompting us to do something. Okay, so it has gone through its various processes and it rebooted a couple of times. What we're left with now is it's telling us that we need to go ahead and set up a password for the built-in administrator account on this computer. And as goofy as this might sound, This is one very slight, simple thing that has been changed. In Windows Server 2008, the process was the same. You would end up with having to put in a password for the administrator account here. But the verbiage changed to where it used to say that you had to change the password. And people would think, why do I have to change it when I haven't set it yet? So in this case, they've changed the verbiage so it's a little bit less confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my own super secret password that I'm going to use when logging in as the administrator on this machine. So you go ahead and if you're following along, put in whatever super secret password you want to use. You'll see here that I had to enter it twice, and then I'll go ahead and click Finish. Now, some people think that this next thing is a little bit awkward, and I suppose maybe it is, but I think it's probably good from a security standpoint, and that is I just entered the administrator password. Matter of fact, I just entered it twice, and what does it do? It now says press Control-Alt-Delete to sign in, as opposed to just going ahead and logging in as administrator. So I'm going to go ahead and press Control-Alt-Delete and go ahead and enter in that super secret password that I just entered. And of course, I typed it wrong. Go ahead and type it again here. There we go. And now it's going to log in for the first time. And what it's going to do, again, very similar to what we've seen in the past, but although we're going to say similar, a little bit different at the same time, and that is it's going to take us into the Server Manager by default. Okay, now when we installed Windows Server 2008, the first thing it did was it took us into the initial configuration utility. Okay, so there was an actual initial configuration that we would go through. Okay, it was actually called the ICT, the initial configuration tool. Well, here it just takes us right into Server Manager. And the reason why is because once in Server Manager, and this is something that we're gonna learn a lot about. I'm not gonna go through all the various aspects of Server Manager here in this lesson because we're gonna see how to use Server Manager as we go through all the lessons because we're gonna spend a lot of time here. This is where you manage your servers. Go figure, they called it Server Manager. We manage servers. Crazy.